tried to shut them up.
There's no guarantee to free speech.
They tried to cancel them.
Deplatforming works.
They even threw them in jail.
Peter Navarro,
Steve Bannon,
now in prison.
But they couldn't stop them.
It's not a prison bill that will ever shut me up.
They call them rebels.
Basket of deplorables.
They call them rogues.
They claim to guns or religion.
And they say they're outlaws.
These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
War Room presents Rebels, Rogues, and Outlaws.
You set out to take Vienna. Take Vienna!
The national bestseller by longtime Bannon producer Dan Fluette. Take a journey through the pictorial history of War Room. In a culture that celebrates the weak, show your support by standing with the rebels. Go to doitfluette.com or scan the QR code on your screen. Use the code RAV20 for 20% off your order. Stand with the rebels and never back down.
All right, there it is, folks. It's Friday, and look at that. We have the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange again, 4 o'clock, right? Right on the dot, right when we come up. Got to tell you what's going on because decent day, really decent week for the market after a very rocky start. NASDAQ up 216 points. Dow Jones flat, just 19, almost 20 points. NASDAQ 216, like I said. S&P up 40. Again, the VIX, which is a indication of how nervous people are in the markets, down. You want it lower. Lower the VIX, the better, and that's going down. Also, of note, Tesla stock up $25 a share. Elon Musk's Tesla, when he said he was going to get back to getting his fingers back into Tesla and SpaceX and Neuralink, that's good for those companies, and investors are happy. But it's also good that Elon Musk is trying to do right by the country, trying to help us save money with Doge, and he's been getting slammed. I think his net worth dropped over $120 billion. $120 billion alone, his own net worth since he started this. He's sacrificing for the country. Tesla stock up nicely today. Bitcoin's up over 95,000. That's great. Bitcoin is moving back up, folks. All right, let's bring in my first guest. Says Congress is not doing its job to deliver the people's mandate. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene joins us to talk about why the Republican-controlled House isn't passing President Trump's executive orders every week. Welcome, Congresswoman. Tell us what's going on. By the way, we love having you. You look terrific there. Look just awesome to bring you into the 4 o'clock hour. And we appreciate you. My audience appreciates you here. What's going on in Congress?
Thanks for having me.
You having a hard time getting some of the stuff through, Congresswoman, and why and who? Let's start with who.
You know, I posted about this morning, Eric, and I think it's extremely important to talk about is President Trump and his administration is having a historic first 100 days. They are doing more for this country, the American people and American companies than any administration in both of our lifetimes. However, it's Congress that is behind and not really passing the mandate that the American people delivered in November. And Eric, if we look back in Joe Biden's first 100 days, then Speaker Nancy Pelosi had worked with Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and they sent 11 bills to Joe Biden's desk, including the American so-called rescue plan that was $1.9 trillion of spending of DEI, trans policies, ridiculous COVID waste and fraud, and so much more, open border policy spending that caused the invasion into our country. They did that in the first 100 days. We're behind, Eric. We've only sent 5 bills to President Trump's desk. That's the Laken-Riley Act, 3 disapproval resolutions of Joe Biden's energy policies, and 1 CR that I never wanted to vote for. It was Biden policies, Biden spending, and unfortunately we had to vote for that to keep the government open. And I'm frustrated. I'm going to tell you, Eric, I'm so frustrated because I ran for Congress angry at the Republican Congress that didn't do the job in President Trump's first administration, and I think a lot of people at home are really upset that with Congress as well.
Are you happy with Speaker Johnson? The reason why I ask this is I know Trump likes him. I see Speaker Johnson when Trump goes to a UFC fight or goes to a football game or wherever he is. He's usually, or a lot of times he's in the entourage. So I think Trump gets along with him. It's just there are a lot of people out here who aren't inside in the halls of Congress like you are, or in the White House like Trump is, who are saying, we're not sure this agenda is being pushed or properly delivered. What are your thoughts on the Speaker?
Well, it's not necessarily the Speaker, and I've been very critical of Speaker Johnson in the past, so I'm not necessarily pointing fingers at Speaker Johnson at this time, and President Trump fully supports Speaker Johnson, and he's made that clear. They have a great relationship. Our problems in Congress are not only just the House itself, but it goes to the Senate, and we're just not moving fast enough, Eric. And the problems in the House actually come from inner quarreling about what should be in the reconciliation package, about tax policy. I'll give you a really good example, and this is important for people to understand. There's actually conservatives that are fighting against the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security campaign promises that President Trump delivered on the road and the American people fully supported. Well, we're having trouble convincing them that these are things that should be in our reconciliation packages. But I will say that leadership does deserve criticism. We should be passing rescissions every single week. The Senate can pass those as well because that only requires 51 votes. The House should be passing executive orders every single week and sending those to the Senate. And the reconciliation package, we should have already had that done. We should have been able to do it just like the Democrats did, because that only needs 51 votes as well.
The things that you're talking about right there, and my concern is that. So it's the Republicans who are pushing back on some of these tax issues. Are these the ones who want everything paid for? Is that the people you're talking about?
It's a mix. See, there's Republicans pushing back on these tax promises that I think are incredibly important. These are the promises we made to the people. They help senior citizens, they help workers, and they help those that work in the service industry. These are campaign promises that the people deserve and will help us win in the midterms in 2026. But then we have other parts of our conference that don't want to cut any revenue, and they want to fund many of the programs. So you've got conservatives saying, no, don't cut this revenue into the federal government because they want to cut spending. Mm-hmm. And then we have other parts of our conference saying, no, we don't want to cut as much spending. So there's all this inner fighting that shouldn't be happening. Here's what the Republican Party needs to understand, Eric. The American people didn't vote for Republican Party policies. Right. The American people voted for Trump, America First, MAGA policies. And that was a referendum on the Republican Party that Republicans in Washington need to get the message. The American people are sick of them. They want President Trump's agenda, and that's what Congress should be passing. And I'm really losing my patience. I've been quiet on this. I have waited, just watching and saying, okay, we should get this done. I've been hopeful, but here we're coming up on President Trump's historic 100 days, where the administration is doing an amazing job, and Congress once again is way behind and should be doing better.
So a couple of things there, and maybe you can help me unpack this. Number one, I think no tax on tips is super, super important. Right? Does it have to be part of this package? Can't you guys break that out? I'm sure that would pass flying colors across, and Trump would sign it immediately. Is this something you couldn't do, standalone? Because it's important. The American people love that idea. And then if you don't mind, and then going forward, is there any? Rand Paul on the Senate side has said he's against a lot of these fiscal policies, some of these financial, the tariffs, et cetera. Are people in the House getting hung up because they're afraid it's going to not pass the Senate?
Okay, so your first question about no tax on tips, and we'll add overtime and Social Security, they cannot be separate. They have to be in the reconciliation bill, because that's the bill that's going to be energy, border, and our new tax law that expires this year. And the reconciliation package only needs 51 votes in the Senate, not the required 60 that's pretty much for everything else. So they have to be in that bill, and it has to be done as soon as possible to grow our economy and give businesses a way to plan for the future. That tax bill is extremely critical. And then the second part of your question is here's what we have to do. Okay. President Trump and his tariffs are the best thing going. President Trump is bringing investments into the country. We're watching them. $7 trillion of investment from businesses. He's fighting for American companies, giving them an edge, finally making things fair with trade among all the countries in the world. So that is going to grow our economy. But when we give these tax breaks for the American people, that's more money in their pocket that they will put back into the economy that will continue to grow our economy and make everything better for all Americans. And this is up to Congress. And Congress needs to do their job.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think folks don't realize out here is that these need to be made permanent. Like, so now is your opportunity. You have the House, you have the Senate. This is the moment where you can do this and make these Trump tax cuts permanent, so that the next guy, whoever it is, if it's not J.D. Vance or whomever, or Marjorie Taylor Greene, or one of a number of people, after that couldn't come back and say, no, those are temporary. These need to be made permanent. And yeah, you guys really got to get it together. That's how important this moment is, right?
Yes, it's important. Congress is not seizing on the moment. This is a time, think about this. We have a judicial coup happening in our country, a judicial coup where these judges are defying the will of the people and defying what the president and his administration is trying to do. And, the Democrats have been waging a coup and basically a silent civil war against President Trump and Republicans in this country, really, let's be honest, since 2017. Let's go back to Crossfire Hurricane. And Republicans right now in Congress, the House and the Senate, have got to understand the moment. If we do not deliver the American people's will, the president's agenda, we could lose the midterms, and we all know what will happen then.
Again,
they will go straight into impeachment.
Is it the Freedom Caucus that's holding this mess up, or individuals in the Freedom Caucus?
Yeah, primarily they are fighting against the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. That not all of Freedom Caucus, but the leadership and pretty much the core part, the board, they are fighting against that because they weren't MAGA. They were not for President Trump. And then you've got other wings of our conference that, like Don Bacon, who's fighting against President Trump's tariffs, just like Rand Paul is. And so we have these different divisions, but here's what these Republicans need to get, Eric. The American people didn't vote for them. They didn't vote for their agenda. They did not vote for their policies. They voted for President Trump's. They voted for President Trump's America First policies. They voted for President Trump's MAGA policies, and they voted for MAHA policies. So Republicans in Congress don't get to step in and go back to some Tea Party politics or Republican policies that of old that have never worked. It's time for Republicans in Congress to put down their egos and get on board with the American people's agenda, which is President Trump's agenda.
Right. There's a bigger picture here. We're playing for a bigger prize than your own your own reelection, which they may be concerned about. And that is the American people. American people sent those folks, all you folks, a mandate that we want Trump's agenda. Listen, I'm a free market guy. I don't like tariffs, but I want him to win. I want America to win. I want this to work. I'm on board with you. Listen, I would never fight that. I would never push it because I want us to win. And Trump, I trust him. One more topic. I'm dying to hear what you have to say about David Hogg on the left. He's 25 years old, somehow become like the voice for liberal Democrats, or Democrats, so to speak. He wants to primary some of the older crowd of Democrats. How does a 25-year-old have such a strong voice in the Democrat Party? And do you think he's the new wave, AOC the mid-wave, and the Schumers, are they on their way out? What are your thoughts on the Democrats, specifically with regards to David Hogg, the vice chair of the DNC?
I love this question. Let's analyze David Hogg, and we'll add AOC and people like Jasmine Crockett. These are people that are not married. Like, they probably don't own a home. Well, no, Jasmine Crockett, I think, owns several, which everyone questions. AOC, I don't know if she owns a home or not. No kids, right? I don't think any of them have any children. So they really don't have any true life experience, Eric. I would argue that. They've never run businesses. They've never had to sign paychecks. They've never had to be responsible for employees, or really making a profit and understanding how to continue that. So here's what's really interesting about that. Every time you see these rallies and these protests, most of these Democrat voters that are out there protesting and rallying are old people. So I find it laughable that these old people, these old liberal or communist Democrats, really they're communists because they're from Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's generation, right? It's funny that they would support a David Hogg or an AOC or a Jasmine Crockett replacing the old elected Democrats like Chuck Schumer, like Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters. So it's really another hypocrisy amongst the Democrat Party. And it just shows how backwards and upside down and how confused and really how insane they are.
Yeah, and you got to love to sit back. I'm loving I'm almost breaking out the popcorn watching David Hogg talk about primarying a whole slew of Democrats. This is exactly what you want. The Democrat Party is in such disarray. It's all over the board, and they don't know what they are. And David Hogg, Congresswoman David Hogg, representing them, and like you said, Jasmine Crockett, who's got a mouth on her, that young lady. If that's what they want, hey, all for it in 2026, 2028, and many years beyond.
Oh, yeah. Well, don't forget, Jasmine Crockett said the people vote for vibes, not policy. And then we all know about David Hogg. He just wants to take everyone's guns away because he thinks that little, soy boy, he'll feel a lot safer if no one has guns. But it's ridiculous. Guns are to protect ourselves. They're a great form of defense. But David Hogg wanting to primary everyone shows that the Democrat Party is completely messed up. And we know that. Actually, they do know who they're for. They are for MS-13. They're for illegal aliens that broke our immigration laws. They're for the Green New Deal that doesn't work. They're for the trans ideology, and they're for destroying women's rights and abortion. That's what the Democrat Party is for, and they're wide open and honest about it.
Well, we love having you on, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. We'll get you back again soon. Like I said, this shot here, I'm telling you, after Congress, if there's a TV future somewhere in there. Congresswoman, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, folks, we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Seagraves, Texas, and the reason why that's very interesting, it's, again, another beautiful shot of the Lone Star State. Beautiful blue sky, wind blowing. Awesome. We'll get to that, the reason why we're doing that in just a second. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to bring him in right now. I'm going to bring in Attorney General Ken Paxton. You know what? I want to do it because I wanted to get right to you, sir, especially after that nice little bump shot that they call.
That was nice.
Where's Seagraves, Texas? I have no idea.
You know what? That's a great question. I've been all over Texas. I'm not exactly sure where.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Let's talk about you. You're running for Senate, Texas Senate. Fantastic to replace John Cornyn. I would call him one of the last remaining rhinos, one of several remaining rhinos, but one of the last old school rhinos. What's going to be different with what you bring?
Well, first of all, he's been there too long. He's been there. It will be 24 years when he's done. He wants to go for 30. That's just too long. Very different representation. I'm not going to go along with Mitch McConnell. Like, obviously, Mitch won't be around, but that establishment mentality isn't serving us well. And the people of Texas, they want a senator more like Ted Cruz, not one like John Cornyn. Believe me, the people of Texas are ready for a change. He may not recognize it, but it's real and it's going to happen.
Attorney General, you're a very, very popular man in Texas, politician in Texas. You're also a very, very popular man in MAGA world where I reside. A lot of us would like to see you in the administration. I know the Senate is you're near and dear. You want that, and it's a great gig. 6 years, and yeah, I get it. And this is a window. I got it. Any thoughts about if Trump said, "Come on, I want you in the admin"? Would you do it?
So it would depend on what it was. I mean, it would have to be something I felt I would be good at and had an interest in doing, because obviously I want to do a good job if I go there. So if he asked and it was something that I thought I would be good at and had a desire or sort of a passion to do, I think it's really important that you love what you do and that you care about it, or you're not going to do the kind of job that you need to do for the people of the country. Got
it. Attorney General is the top lawmaker in the state. Talk to us about this. We can talk about Abrego Garcia, but we can also talk about these activist judges that are blocking Trump's agenda. In other words, they said, don't send people, you catch MS-13 members, don't send them back to Venezuela from, I don't know, New York. Well, they said, well, let's go to Texas and send them from Texas. Another judge says, no, you can't do it from Texas either. Supreme Court, tell us where all this legal wrangling, how do we end up with so many activist judges?
Like, this is a problem that we have. We have a lot of activist judges that Obama and even Bush appointed that I deal with every day. And it's not just this issue. It's many issues. They have no respect for the Constitution, and the only check on them, since they have lifetime appointments, is Congress. Congress can impeach them. And if there's no other reason for impeaching a judge than that they will not follow the Constitution, it seems to me there should be some accountability, and Congress has that ability.
Do they have to be congressionally impeached? Can they be removed, I don't know, by justice?
No, just impeachment. I mean, even if they've committed crimes, they have lifetime appointments. And the founders wanted them independent. They also viewed them as the least powerful branch of government. They have become more powerful because they've stepped in, like they're trying to step into Trump's shoes and run the executive branch, make decisions for him because they disagree with him politically. That is not their role, and they need to be brushed back with a pitch, at least some type of pitch. Somebody needs to be impeached so that they get the message that this is not something you can do. Yeah,
another activist judge just said they put a halt on Trump's pulling back or at least pausing some of the funding of the schools that he said stop with the DEI programs. The schools said no. He said, I'm going to pull back funding. And the judge said, no, you have to continue funding.
How can a judge have control over funding?
Understand this.
They don't have control. That is not their role. They have literally no control of the purse strings. That's Congress. When the money's been appropriated and the executive branch has the opportunity to implement those policies, and if he's deciding that they're violating federal law or violating policy, then he can stop it. It's certainly a judge can't.
I've been doing this a long time, Attorney General. The executive branch, the judicial branch, I mean, clearly it's a checks and balances system, but when the judicial branch overrides the executive branch, is that in the Constitution? I mean, how can the judicial branch override the executive when he's the commander-in-chief?
So they have the opportunity to interpret laws and determine whether something's constitutional or not constitutional. So if President Trump is violating the Constitution, then they have the right to say so. But in this case, he's managing the government, and his job is to oversee immigration and to deal with it. Their job is not to decide whether they like his policies. Now, if they have a problem, like, for instance, we got a national injunction because Joe Biden decided I'm not deporting anybody anymore. Well, guess what? That is not, he has to deport people. That is his job. And we got an injunction stopping him from deporting people. And so that's legitimate.
If Trump disobeys even a Supreme Court edict, what happens?
I mean, it's up for question. I guess they can hold in contempt. It would be an interesting question. I mean, if they are overstepping their bounds and he says no, I mean, I guess the left would say we have a constitutional crisis, but we already have a little bit of a constitutional crisis right now.
But it's undecided as it's undecided law right now.
Honestly,
because Joe Biden famously went around Congress and with the student loan forgiveness, went to the Supreme Court, and I believe he still was able to get some money out after the Supreme Court said no.
Yeah, he lost all the cases, and he pretty much did it anyway. So, I mean, there's certainly precedent for a president saying, I'm not following what a court says. And some of them have done it in violation of laws already in place. And some have said, no, there are no laws in place stopping me from doing this. I'm doing it.
I'm going to have a little fun interpretation of law or constitutionality. 2028 comes, J.D. Vance wins the elections, says my vice president is Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance says, I just don't have the heart for this guy, so I'm going to step aside. What happens?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer because it's never happened. And certainly Donald Trump could be vice president. There's no doubt in my mind that would be constitutional. The question is, what could he serve a third term because he stepped up because Vance, for some reason, couldn't serve or didn't want to serve? Don't know the answer. I think that would be an interesting question.
Might be worth a try. I have about a minute and a half or so. This whole idea of not deporting Abrego Garcia because the left is saying, well, he deserves due process. Due process. Number one, due process, is it constitutional? Does a non-citizen get due process? Probably, but you tell me. And then also, at some point when you violate your court order to appear or don't leave, do you still deserve due process? And by the way, isn't that due process already?
Well, I'm not sure, first of all, that if you're a non-citizen, Joe Biden let in the country. So do we have to have due process for all 14 million people? I don't know that's true. These are not people that are recognized under our Constitution as citizens. They're not supposed to be here. They should be deported immediately. We don't need any kind of hearing. If they are not supposed to be here, they should be deported. Otherwise, this will never happen. If we have to go through court proceedings for every one of these people, especially people who are committing crimes, we know this guy has a criminal history. He's a bad guy. He's a gang member. He's got a bad history. We have to be able to get rid of bad people that just walk across the border.
That's my point. I get arguments daily with liberals about due process. They're, you're in America. It doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. You deserve due process. Well, I would contend I disagree because you're a criminal because you broke the law getting here. Do criminals deserve due process? Non-citizens? I guess we're going to find out. Ken Paxton, Attorney General from Texas, likely the next senator from the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, folks. Before I had to break, I just want to let you know, I do a podcast and you're all aware of it. YouTube, everything. Just you have to subscribe. There's ways to subscribe. They'll be on the screen. Hit subscribe. It's free. And we will be back in 2.5 minutes. Always good because I never know what's coming up. Those are live views because we're always live. Casco, Maine. Really nice. Look at that, like the lake. Beautiful, beautiful setting. Probably great fishing in that lake too. All right, folks, my next guest is up to date with the latest ways people can lose weight, and she has some thoughts on the latest pill from Ozempic. I'm happy to bring back Dr. Kelly Victory today. Dr. Victory, unbelievable what's going on with these pills. Are they safe? Are they not safe? Talk to us, and we're going to find out down the road that they're not. Help us out here.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric. Most people are familiar now with the drug Ozempic, which is the injectable form of a peptide called semaglutide. Many manufacturers, including Eli Lilly, have been working on making an oral form of that drug. However, it is posing some issues with regard to adverse side effects. We have a new drug out as well called retatrutide, which is we sell under the name Drop, which is similar to Ozempic, but it actually has 3 different mechanisms of action. Rather than targeting a singular hormone receptor like Ozempic does, the Drop formulation targets 3 different receptors. And I believe that that's likely why it is showing so much more promise in terms of weight loss. The Drop formulation is, again, like the Eli Lilly version, is oral. It's taken on a daily basis, but in a much, much lower dose than that oral pill that Eli Lilly is working on. And so therefore we have seen very, very few, if any, negative side effects. People are able not only to avoid the injections with the Drop formulation, but they take it daily and therefore can control the amount of medication that they're getting, and they can, increase it or decrease it as they see fit based on their side effects and based on their weight loss. We are seeing that this particular drug, retatrutide, as I said, called Drop from the wellness company, has really been remarkable in its ability to control people's hunger, to control their cravings. It modulates insulin production and fat metabolism, but most importantly, I think, controls appetite. And that is what really derails most people's weight loss efforts. We know that obesity is a tremendous issue in this country. 74% of adults in the United States are either overweight or obese. 40%, 4 out of 10 adolescents have pre-diabetes. These are staggering numbers, and they simply are unsustainable, in addition to the massive cost of that type of disease burden. The quality of life that people are relegated to when they are obese or overweight really is not very good. So I think that there's great promise with the retatrutide oral medication called Drop, so that people can really start to meet their weight loss goals. This is not for the casual individual who needs to lose, 5 or 8 pounds before bikini season. It's really for people who have significant weight in excess of 30 pounds, people for whom additional weight or excess weight is really putting them at risk for other health problems.
This is fascinating, and you can get this through the wellness company. There are a lot of people friends of mine who are on Ozempic, and they say, or Wegovy, or the other ones, and they'll take a shot and they won't have another shot till next week, and they say they feel sick right after the shot, and it takes them a few days to regulate whatever the drug is. But so this is a daily drop, and it's oral, number one. Number two, it's daily, so you don't have these big spikes in medication.
Exactly.
Go ahead, and that's a
no, exactly. When you take a medication once a week, particularly as an injection, you get a big spike in the blood level of the drug, and then over the ensuing 6 days, the levels drop off. If you can take this orally, like we do with drop, you can take a much, much lower dose, and you keep a much more consistent level of the drug in the bloodstream. And therefore don't have that peak and valley. And again, if people have any negative side effect, and we have seen virtually none, they can lower the dose if they need to. But we are finding really great results thus far. I think it's an exciting thing because people can, as we said, avoid the injection. They can take it daily rather than weekly, and it has a triple mechanism of action, 3 different hormone receptors compared to semaglutide, which targets only a singular hormone receptor.
Fantastic. You get that through the wellness company. It's really, really, really an interesting drug and new use of a drug that's maybe been used differently for a while. Love it. Fantastic. Dr. Kelly Victory, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Wonderful. Really good, folks. A lot of obesity is killing too many people and creating a lot of morbidities as well. All right, my next guest puts it all on the line, heads into Mexico following migrants trying to cross illegally into the U.S. He also goes on ride-alongs with ICE right here in the U.S. To tell us the latest is Rav, host of Law and Border, which airs this Saturday at 4 p.m., Ben Berkham. So, Ben, how is it with ICE these days, and are things changing since Trump has been in office?
Well, I mean, it goes without question. You look at the President Trump's policies versus the last regime's policies of open borders, let everyone in, criminals or not, no background checks, no verification, take away DNA testing of children and males, bringing the kids across so we don't know how many of those kids are being trafficked, versus President Trump, who came in and allowed Tom Homan and Kristi Noem and all of the agencies to be able to go. Now the biggest threat these guys are facing, though, is ICE agencies now being able to do their job are the enemies within our own government. And so we're going to be covering that, riding with Tom Homan and Baltimore ICE and New York ICE, and we're just getting started. So we've got a lot more this Saturday, as you said. Tomorrow is going to be the kickoff for that, our ICE special. You don't want to miss it, but there's a lot of work to be done. By the way, thank God, 2 judges. I'm hoping for 1,000 more, but
right. Oh, what did we get? Did we lose Ben? I think we may have lost his signal. We lost Ben's signal. So we're going to say goodbye to Ben. Just a couple of thoughts. I think what was important, what I wanted to ask Ben was, we had Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton here, who told us, and we had this discussion about what is due process, and do criminals who come across the border, who are already criminals, and then commit crimes, do they deserve due process? He literally said it's not constitutionally written out that way. So, so someone comes across the border, is it legal for them? Do they need to have legal representation paid by us? Do they need to clog up our courts? The left will tell you yes. The left will tell you it doesn't matter how bad they are, bring them back. They'll actually go to El Salvador and sit with the illegals who came over here, have MS-13 gang stuff tattooed on their knuckles, hurt their wives to the point where the wives want them to be put in jail, and then somehow demand due process. The liberals are absolutely missing the point on this. It's incredible. And then this whole issue of whether or not Trump was allowed to deport a plane full of illegals who are criminals, criminal migrants. Judge says no, activist judge says no. So Trump says, you know what? They said no about New York. Let's see if we can send them from Texas. Another judge comes along and says, no, activist judges are going to kill this country. I'm going to say it again, activist judges are going to kill this country. Another judge yesterday just slapped a cease and desist on the Trump administration, because the Trump administration said, if you're not pulling DEI out of your schools, your little kids, if they're being exposed to the DEI BS that he didn't want and he was elected on eliminating, the federal funding was going to dry up. And another activist judge came in and said, no, you're wrong. You can't do that, Trump. So we have a lot of liberal activist judges who are changing what the American people voted for. So they're literally overriding what the American people are about, what they want, what they sent Trump as a mandate to do in D.C. Let's not forget, who are these judges? These judges are Obama and Biden appointees, many of them. Where do they come from? Where do they come from? They came from George Soros's money. George Soros has spent a lot of money to get these activist judges appointed, elected in some cases. Doesn't matter. They're liberal, they're progressive, and they're doing everything in their power to undermine the Trump administration. All right, Mad Dog, come give me a voice of God here. Give me a control room shot now too. What do we got here? What's going on? Should we go to break?
We have Ben back. It's up to you.
All right, let's just say hi to Ben real quick so we can put a button on his show and then we'll go. Ben, you're back. We don't have any time. We ran out of time. Can you just tell us about the show and tell us what you're going to show us?
Yeah, you're exactly right. These judges need to be held accountable. This episode, we're going to be riding with Tom Homan and ICE, and you're going to see the hands tied behind their back because the previous administration and what needs to be done to unleash these guys to deport everyone that needs to be deported. And you're absolutely right. If you're here illegally, you do not deserve citizens' due process. 100%.
All right, Ben Berkham, always good to have you, my friend. Stay safe. Stay safe. Again, folks, don't forget to check out Ben's show, Law and Border, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on RAV. We will be back in 2.5 minutes. Alaska. Mad Dog, you got your hat? You got your cowboy hat?
I do have my hat. I feel special.
There you go. Okay, I see the color. You kind of look like Little Nas X. I don't know. I'm just saying. You look good, brother. I like that.
Thank you.
The cowboy hat. It was Alaska. I think a lot of horses in Alaska. I've never been there. I hear a lot of horses, so that's why.
Yeah, hee-haw.
All right, folks, tariffs have thrown the global economy into chaos. Potential widespread inflation tied to massive supply chain disruptions is weighing heavily on all of us. But there's a silver lining that most people missed. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from the sweeping tariffs. Did you know that? I didn't know that. It's pretty interesting. While these new policies are triggering significant financial chaos, the administration preserved your ability to diversify into precious metals. If you're concerned about your savings, I encourage you to have a free consultation with a Birch Gold precious metal specialist. The first step is to text America to 989898 and receive your free no-obligation info kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA for no money out of your pocket with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of thankful customers. Text America to the number 989898. Again, text America to 989898 to claim your free info kit right now. I understand that the Democrats can barely find their way through the rest of this week, but someone in the party has to be looking ahead, right? The Dems seem to be short on depth. So when old Joe expired and Kamala failed on the national stage, eyes turned to the party's empty bench as talks of 2028 began. We've heard rumblings about Kamala Harris and Tampon Tim making individual returns. We've also seen a total shift in the messaging from Gavin Newsom's office. Outside of this, the Democrats seemingly have nobody to represent the party during the next national election. It seems like a new candidate may be slowly emerging, a candidate so impractical, someone who could really practically gift wrap an election victory and hand it right to whoever represents the GOP. It may be reaching, but listen to this very campaign ad style message from, drumroll, AOC.
You know, Idaho, I am so touched being here. I'm a girl from the Bronx. To be welcomed here in this state, all of us together, seeing our common cause, this is what this country is all about. Don't let them trick us into thinking we are enemies. Don't let them trick us into thinking we can be separated into rural and urban, black and white and Latino. We are one.
Alexandria, they told us this was a conservative state. They got it wrong.
And Idaho, I know that looking around here, it can feel impossible for Republicans out here to be defeated. That's not true. It's simply not true. And from the waitress who is now speaking to you today from this podium, I can tell you, impossible is nothing.
And from the waitress who took a $77,000 flight around the country to fight the oligarchs tour. Okay, really? This is what you want to go with? And by the way, the little girl voice has got to go. You're not going to be president with a little girl voice. Sorry. Rashida Tlaib just took the historic L loser in Congress. She proposed the measure that would see the United States designate Israel as an adversary, one of our greatest allies, certainly our greatest ally in the Middle East. Rashida Tlaib, obviously from Michigan, Muslim, wants Israel to be designated as an adversary. Listen.
Mr. Speaker, today on the House floor, there was an amendment offered that suffered the most overwhelming defeat that I have ever seen in the United States Congress. And for good reason, because it is perhaps the most abhorrent legislative proposal I have ever seen in the United States Congress. The representative from Michigan, Representative Tlaib, introduced a measure that would classify Israel as an adversary of the United States alongside the likes of China, Iran, and North Korea. Fortunately, this proposal was swiftly and nearly unanimously rejected by the House of Representatives.
The final vote, by the way, folks, was 3 to 410. 3 to 410. I'm guessing Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, the other Somalian Muslim from Minnesota, and I can't even think who the third would be. Maybe Hakeem Jeffries. No idea. Speaking of Ilhan Omar, another one of the dumbest women on the planet on the left decided to run through some of the Democrats' plans if the party was able to secure a House majority. Listen to some of the things that she wants her party to do if they get the majority.
You all know that Democrats are in the minority in the House and in the Senate, and that drastically reduces our power. If we were in the majority, here's what we would be doing. We will be holding non-stop oversight hearings about what the Trump administration is doing, carrying out investigations into the corruption and the abuses of power and illegal actions. We would be holding Trump appointees in contempt of Congress when they lie under oath and violate the Constitution. And trust me when I say this, we will be suing Trump for stealing congressional authority, especially spending power.
Oh, my goodness. Another reason why not to have her in Congress. By the way, she married her own brother for immigration reasons. This is who you want representing you, the state of Minnesota. Really? And I was right. It was Ilhan Omar was one of the other one with Tlaib, and also Ayanna Pressley from Georgia. So those three voted 3 against 410 against creating a adversarial relationship with our greatest ally in the Middle East, Israel. Meghan Markle, who is named one of Time magazine's most influential people, don't know why, apparently gets her edge from flower petals. Listen to this elite talk about the salad garnish that changed her life.
Let's talk about flower sprinkles. Because I think it speaks to the tiny moments of joy that are so effortless and just create a little bit of magic that we're all craving in our everyday. They're tiny little flower petals that are dried. I started putting them on salads. I started putting them on scrambled eggs. It didn't actually matter. On a yogurt parfait.
Most influential person who uses flower petals on her salad. All right, folks, stop me if you're shocked to learn that old Chucky Schumer is standing with Harvard in its attempts to sue the Trump administration. Here he is on MSNBC, of course, talking about his case.
As you know, Harvard University is suing the Trump administration for freezing billions in funding to the school after it rejected a list of the administration's demands. Is Harvard doing the right thing?
Yes, and in fact, today, a group of Jewish senators and myself sent a letter to the administration telling them that, look, going against anti-Semitism is important, but what they've done goes way beyond that.
Goodness gracious. You should be ashamed of yourself, Chuck Schumer. Ashamed of yourself. Turn in your Jewish card, will you, brother? Graduation season is upon us, and the next generation of leaders is set to leave the dorms and enter the workforce. Oh, my gosh. Brace yourself. Let's listen to what kind of skills the students at NYU, New York University, will be bringing to the table when they apply for jobs this fall.
My name is Jacob, and my concentration is environmental science and sustainable business.
Hi, my name is Lex, and my concentration is the performance of self.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle. My concentration is creative direction, production, and narrative through the arts, performance, and written word.
Hi, my name is Karina Gummis, and my concentration is in journalism and Latin American studies, with an emphasis in human rights, collective memory, and political violence.
Hi, my name is Steph.
And it goes on and on. Really prepared. You know what, folks? The rest of the world, China, Brazil, they're laughing at us. All right, we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. is that? I know where that is. That's the 3rd floor of a building in West Palm Beach, Florida. I know exactly what that location. Mad Dog wearing the little NASDAQ hat. There's Ben. There's the guys there. But hey, by the way, guys, I got you guys a whole slew of scratch-off lottery tickets. You win anything?
We got Ben won $50.
There you go. Okay.
So that's the big winner. I didn't really win much.
I think you have some more to go, so we'll keep folks
going. We'll let you know the results.
All right. Friday, you know what? Just went out and got a couple $100 or $150 of lottery tickets. Let them go have some fun. By the way, White Claw, the best flavor of White Claw bar none is peach. Just want to put that out there. Okay, folks, welcome back. Today, Steve Bannon has left us in the very capable hands of War Room White House correspondent Natalie Winters. Natalie, one of the youngest White House correspondents in history. Congratulations. You were out on Pebble Beach when a CNN reporter said something so asinine. Again, Donnie O'Sullivan, all he wants to do is gotcha BS. Let's take a look.
To the people, and I'm sure you see this online every single day, who say you don't deserve to be here because you're not a real journalist. What's your response to them?
Well, I'm pretty sure the group of people in there spent, 4 years covering for someone who was essentially dead, and that's being charitable in my description of him, a president by the name of Joe Biden. So to all those people who are apoplectic over having new media voices, you guys failed, and that's why we're here.
All right, that was a great response. Where did that come from? Did you have that planned? Because that was a mic drop moment, Natalie.
No, I'm a real journalist and a real reporter. Unlike CNN, I don't have to waste days coming up with attempted gotcha questions. And like I always say, I think the truth just speaks for itself. Though I think the funniest part of that whole exchange, I actually taped with them for probably over 40 minutes or so. Got really in the weeds with a lot of what we focus on in the war room. And I made the point, which I think is very imperative. You don't really hear it a lot. I've done this in every interview that I've ever done with the legacy media. No one's ever printed it. But Joe Biden had his own rendition of new media, and that was the vast and robust government-funded and sanctioned censorship of the American people, including but not limited to colluding with media outlets, colluding with big tech platforms, including with the intelligence community, like the documents that Tulsi Gabbard just declassified. So I think what the White House is doing now is a much better, more transparent form of new media, whereas Joe Biden, I guess, trying to put a bunch of bureaucratic censors, who, by the way, we still don't really even know the names of, because no journalists even dared to ask about it. They just mocked us as conspiracy theorists for daring to even question it. I think that goes over with the American people much better than I think what the Biden regime was doing clandestinely and covertly.
Yeah, and to the credit, to the administration credit, Caroline Leavitt, Stephen Chung, who is the comms director, senior comms director, he realizes new media is where it's at. But people are upset with you, Natalie, and others, but you specifically. There's a New York Times article that said that you're a young, Trump-friendly, and you have a White House press pass, such a great time. But they're upset with you. Sometimes they're upset with you with what you're wearing. Now, Donnie O'Sullivan there, look, here's another Daily Mail I pulled. You're in front of the White House. You look very respectable. I don't know what their problem is. And then they throw that picture of you. You're free to wear whatever the hell you want on your free time. Are they just jealous? Are they just nitpicky? What do you think it is?
Well, look, I think War Room has been the victim, though I guess we'll use the woke terminology, a survivor of countless attacks, every way, shape, and form, whether that's debanking, censorship, deplatforming, prison sentences, right? What they did to Stephen K. Bannon, going after our advertisers, trying to get us taken off YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So now that they really don't have the, powers of the state or these government-funded apparatuses to go after our show, what are they going to do? They're going to attack me for what I wear, for my age, for my, blonde hair. They don't really land. I think it's also part of a broader effort to really impugn the broader new media initiative to make us look unserious, and that what they're trying to do is import a bunch of North Korean style propagandists. So I guess the American iteration of that is a bunch of 24-year-old blonde girls who don't know what they're talking about. I think my record of reporting and breaking stories shared by members of Congress and the president himself, getting people fired, including but not limited to Chinese Communist Party spies, I'm very happy to have that as my record and as my resume. I think I've probably broken more stories than that CNN hack that interviewed me.
You're a very good journalist. You're great, you're very smart. And in the picture, throw that picture up one more time, that Daily Mail thing. It's just, again, Kennedy wrote that. And look, I like Kennedy. She's funny. She came from MTV to say you're acting like a hostess from Hooters. That was kind of a cheap shot. Natalie, we're going to give the show to you. Have a great show. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk. Tell Steve we said we'll see you on Monday.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for having me. And War Room Posse, it's Natalie Winters filling in today for Stephen K. Bannon. Friday, April 25th in the year of our Lord 2025. We've got a packed show, all things Act Blue, illegal alien invasions. And I want you guys I know we don't take any days off in the War Room, but just to remember that this is the weekend that I guess should have been for the White House Correspondents Association. If you want to get a good laugh, read the apoplexy that is plaguing, I guess, my colleagues here in D.C. about how the parties just aren't that great anymore because they don't have any money, because you guys wised up. You realize that we don't have to watch their propaganda, their BS. And before we play the cold, if you guys just want to toss up real quick, just a glorious quote from Politico where people are saying that the White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend, they're going to be hugging each other just a little bit longer to try to prevail over, dictator Trump. Absolutely wild stuff. Denver, let's roll the cold.
Where the is the accountability when a judge orders someone to be brought back from El Salvador? Why is no one enforcing it? Where is rule of law? They have no problem deporting terrified families, but when a judge tells them to undo the damage, they just don't do it. This isn't about law and order. It's about control, about who deserves protection and who the system sees as disposable. If we ignore this, if they can ignore court orders for immigrants, what else can they ignore next? Justice without enforcement is a lie. We either fight back now or get used to living in a system that chooses cruelty.